The prenup that saved my $3 million fortune.
During dinner, my stepsister said she was pregnant and that the father is my fiancé. But then, I revealed a secret. You know when you think you know the people closest to you? When you believe that no matter what problems exist, certain lines would never be crossed. Well, I thought so too. My name is Sophia. I'm 32 years old, and this is the story of how I discovered that some people are capable of anything to get what they want. It was a Tuesday in September when I received news of my promotion. After 7 years working as a lead software engineer at a biotech firm in Seattle, Washington, I would finally be Chief Technology Officer, CTO. I couldn't stop smiling at the office. I called Lucas, my fiancé, and Veronica, my younger stepsister, to share the joy. Let's celebrate at Le Fleur tonight, I suggested. Le Fleur was that chic French bistro where a meal cost more than a week's worth of groceries, but I could afford it. I worked hard for this. I arrived at the restaurant first, wearing that emerald green dress that Lucas always said looked perfect on me. I chose a table in a more secluded corner. I wanted privacy to celebrate. The dining room was full of tech investors and elegant couples, the kind of environment where I felt comfortable after years building my career. When I saw them arriving together, I found it strange. Veronica was radiant, with a smile I hadn't seen in a long time, and Lucas seemed nervous. He always got a bit uncomfortable in expensive places. But there was something different that night, a silent tension in the air that I couldn't identify. Congratulations on the promotion, Soph. Veronica hugged me with suspicious effusiveness. She was never very demonstrative with affection, especially with me. We ordered a $300 bottle of Bordeaux, and I started telling them about the new patents I would lead, the 75% stock option grant, the possibilities for expansion into Asia. Veronica listened with too much attention. Lucas kept fidgeting with his napkin. Actually, Veronica interrupted in the middle of my excitement, we also have news to share. She took Lucas's hand across the table, and my stomach nodded inexplicably. I'm pregnant. The world stopped. Literally stopped.
The restaurant voices became a distant buzz. The lights seemed to flicker, and I stared at my stepsister's hand intertwined with my fiancé's as if it were a mirage. Pregnant. Veronica was pregnant with Lucas's child. I know it's a complicated situation, Lucas spoke for the first time since they arrived, his voice coming out strained. But it happened, and we fall in love. They watched me with a mixture of expectation and poorly disguised satisfaction. It was as if they were waiting for me to explode, scream, make a scene that would give the other table something interesting to talk about later. But I couldn't do anything but stare. My stepsister, Veronica, whom I helped pay for a certification course when our parents couldn't, was there holding my fiancé's hand, pregnant with his child, telling me this on the day of my promotion. How long? I managed to ask, my voice coming out strangely calm. 5 months, Veronica replied, running her hand over her still imperceptible belly. It started right after your vacation to the Galapagos.
My vacation had been in April. It was September. 5 months of betrayal, 5 months of lies, 5 months of them laughing at me while I worked 80 hours a week to get this promotion I so wanted to share with the people I loved. Sophia, say something, Lucas asked. And for the first time in years, I really looked at him, really paid attention to the man I had been engaged to for 5 years. He looked relieved, as if a weight had been lifted from his shoulders, as if this was liberating for him. What do you want me to say? I asked, still in that strange voice that didn't sound like mine. Congratulations? Veronica laughed, a nervous laugh, but genuine. Look, Soph, I know it's not easy, but these things happen. Love is love, right? And the baby, she ran her hand over her belly again, the baby needs both parents together. I picked up my purse, slowly, left $300 bills on the table, more than enough to cover my part of the bill, and stood up. I'm going home. You do whatever you want.
As I walked toward the exit, I heard Lucas calling my name, but I didn't turn around. In the wall mirror of the restaurant, I could see their reflections still sitting at the table. Veronica was smiling. Throughout childhood, Veronica lived in my shadow, and this irritated her deeply. I was the older daughter, the responsible one, the one who got good grades without having to try very hard. She was the youngest, the flighty one, the one our parents protected from everything. But for some reason, this was never enough for her. We grew up in a professional class family of Filipino and Irish descent in Tacoma. Our father worked as a university professor of mathematics. Our mother was an architect. We weren't millionaires, but we didn't lack anything either. Even so, Veronica always had the impression that she deserved more. When I got a full scholarship to study computer science at MIT, Veronica made sure to say it was old money luck. When I graduated with honors and got an internship at a Fortune 500 company in Seattle, she commented that I always knew how to play the game. When I bought my first apartment at 28,
She asked if I wasn't being too self-centered. The worst part is that she really believed she deserved the same things I had, but without the effort. As if success was a matter of luck or favoritism, not hard work and sacrifice. Veronica studied hospitality management at a local community college, graduated without much distinction, and since then jumped from job to job, always complaining that bosses didn't recognize her potential. Our parents always tried to balance things out. When I bought my new Tesla Model 3, they bought a used one for her too, a Nissan Leaf. When I started earning well, they increased the help they gave her to pay rent for a small apartment in downtown Tacoma. It was as if they were trying to compensate for my success by keeping Veronica at the same level artificially. She always asked about my salary, my investments, the apartment's value. Just sisterly curiosity, she'd say. But there was an intensity in the way she asked that bothered me. Now I understood it wasn't curiosity. It was pure envy mixed with greed that I refused to see. When I met Lucas at a work party 6 years ago, Veronica made sure to say he wasn't my type. He was handsome, nice, worked as a realtor at a local firm. He earned reasonably well by Washington standards, about $6,000 a month with commissions, but nothing compared to my $10,000 salary that soon became $18,000. Still, I fell in love. He was fun, affectionate, and made me laugh after stressful days at the office. Lucas had a simplicity that attracted me, an uncomplicated way of seeing life that contrasted with my nature of always planning 3 steps ahead. Veronica was always polite with Lucas, but I noticed a certain tension, especially when we all went out together and the bill arrived. Lucas sometimes felt embarrassed when I paid for restaurants that cost $200 per person, or when we bought concert tickets that cost $350 each. Veronica observed all this with that calculating look I knew well, but preferred to ignore. "You support him, don't you?" she asked once when Lucas went to the bathroom during a family lunch at the Cheesecake Factory. "I don't support him," I replied, irritated. "We split things proportionally to our income." It was true. Lucas paid the bills he could, groceries, gas, some household bills, and I covered the rest. It worked for us. But for Veronica, that was more proof that I had too much luck. A brilliant career, a beautiful 3-bedroom condo in Seattle, a dedicated fiancé, investments that grew month by month. As if I hadn't fought for every achievement. As if everything had fallen from the sky. I got home and the apartment was exactly as I had left it that morning. Made bed, dishes washed, everything in place. It was strange how life could completely fall apart and things could remain exactly the same. Lucas's electric toothbrush was still there in the bathroom, his clothes in the closet, that ridiculous Seattle Seahawks mug he'd gotten in a realty promotion. I sat on the dark gray velvet sofa in the living room, still in my dress and high heels, and stared into the void. My head was strangely quiet, as if my brain had shut down the emotion processing system. I knew I should be crying, screaming, breaking things, but all I felt was a kind of numbness, like when you hit your elbow and can't feel your arm for a few minutes. Lucas didn't come home that night, obviously. At 1:30 in the morning, I received a message. "I'm at V's house. We'll talk tomorrow. L."
He called my stepsister V? As if they'd been intimate for years, as if I didn't exist, as if our 5 years of engagement were just an inconvenient obstacle that had finally been removed. I spent the night awake, walking through the 150 square meters of the apartment, trying to understand how I had gotten there. How hadn't I noticed the signs? Were there signs? Lucas working later in recent weeks, Veronica asking about my schedule whenever she called, both of them arriving together at the restaurant as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Now that I thought about it, Veronica had appeared a lot in Seattle in recent months. I came to see some property listings, she'd say.
Veronica worked as a freelance property manager, so it was plausible that she had projects in the city, but Seattle was only an hour and a half from Tacoma. Why did she always stay in hotels? Why didn't she ever ask to sleep on my couch like she used to? When the sun rose, I was still on the couch with my dress wrinkled and makeup smeared. My iPhone showed 21 missed calls from my mother. Veronica had told her everything, probably in a romanticized version where they were two lovers who couldn't resist the cruel fate that made them meet through me. I called the office and said I wouldn't be going to work. Marcus, my assistant, noticed something was wrong from the tone of my voice, but didn't insist. "Call me if you need anything, Sophia. You never miss work. It must be something important." She was one of the few people I could trust completely. I went to take a shower, trying to wash away the sticky feeling from that night. Under the hot water, I finally cried. Not dramatic movie tears, but that tired crying of someone who had just lost two important people at once, my stepsister and my fiancé. The two I loved most in the world had betrayed me in the cruelest way possible. When I got out of the shower, I had 3 messages from Veronica. "Soph, we need to talk. It wasn't how we wanted you to find out. Call me, please. I know it's difficult, but we can resolve this like adults." I deleted them all without responding. For the first time in years, I spent the entire day doing absolutely nothing productive. I watched Netflix, ordered Thai food that cost $50 and arrived cold, ignored the phone that rang every 3 hours. It was as if I needed a whole day to process the fact that my life had completely changed overnight. That evening, Lucas showed up to get some clothes. He still had the keys. Still felt entitled to enter the apartment I had bought alone as if nothing had happened. He tried to talk, explain, justify himself while packing a suitcase with his things. It wasn't planned, Soph. It just happened. As if betrayal were a meteorological accident, something beyond human control. V was going through a difficult time. Needed someone to talk to. "How long have you been together?" I asked, watching him fold the designer sweaters I had bought for him at Neiman Marcus. "Officially, since May. 5 months. 5 months of lies, fake kisses, empty I love yous before sleep. While I worked 60 hours a week to get the promotion, dreaming of our future together, he was building a new life with my stepsister. I'm going to find a lawyer," I warned, sitting on the California king bed I had bought the year before. Lucas stopped packing his suitcase and looked at me for the first time since he arrived. "Soph, it doesn't have to be like this. We can resolve everything among ourselves civilly. Divide things fairly without complications." Civilly. Divide things fairly. As if betrayal were an issue that could be resolved with politeness and goodwill. As if he had any right to what I had built. After he left, taking 2 suitcases and promising to come back on the weekend to get the rest, I called Eliza, my best friend since college and a corporate law attorney in San Francisco. I told her everything, trying to keep my voice steady. Eliza listened to me in silence, and when I finished, sighed deeply. "Sophia, I'm so sorry. I know how much you loved him and trusted your stepsister." She paused. "About the breakup, I need you to bring all the cohabitation documents, bank statements, deeds, proof of income, investments, everything. I'll put together the best case possible for you." "Eliza, I don't care about the money. I just want this to end quickly." "Don't say that, Sophia. You fought hard to build what you have. You're not going to hand it over to someone who betrayed you. Do you have any idea how much your assets are worth today?" I didn't have an exact idea, but I knew it was substantial. The apartment was worth at least $750,000. I had about a $250,000 in investments, a stake in a startup worth at least $100,000, plus the new salary of $20,000 monthly. I scheduled the meeting for the following week and hung up. That's when I remembered I needed to organize all the important documents. It wasn't something I did regularly. Who thinks about ending an engagement when they're happy in their relationship? I went to the office I had set up in the second bedroom of the apartment, where I kept everything organized
In clear plastic bins, like a person obsessed with control. Bank statements from the last 3 years. Tax returns, investment statements from Vanguard and Goldman Sachs. It was impressive to see on paper everything I had achieved at 32. I was proud of what I had built, but now everything seemed so fragile, as if it could disappear because of a betrayal and a poorly conducted separation process. I took the golden folder where I kept the engagement documents: birth certificate, our ring purchase receipt from Tiffany & Co., contract for. I stopped with the receipt in my hand, frowning. There was something written there about property protection that suddenly caught my attention. Prenuptial agreement. Complete separation of assets. Why complete separation? Most couples in Washington chose community property, shared ownership. That's when I remembered vaguely, like a memory that was stored in a dusty drawer of my brain. Prenuptial agreement. I had insisted on making a prenuptial agreement 4 years ago. I ran to the small safe I had installed in the bedroom closet. It had been so long since I'd opened it that I almost forgot the combination. My brother's birth date inverted, inside between the apartment deed and my passport. There it was, a sealed envelope with the seals of the King County Clerk's office. Prenuptial agreement. Sophia Reyes and Lucas Chen. My hands trembled as I opened the envelope. I vaguely remembered insisting on this at the time, but the details were hazy. It had been 4 years ago. I was so in love and happy that the legal aspects of marriage seemed just a necessary formality to officialize our love. But now, alone in the bedroom at 3 o'clock in the morning, holding those pages printed on letterhead from the law firm, I felt something I hadn't experienced in days. A hint of hope. Maybe, just maybe, I wouldn't lose everything I had built. Maybe there was something in those papers that could protect me from my stepsister's greed and my fiancé's irresponsibility. I took a deep breath, turned on the bedside lamp, and began reading every word with the attention of someone deciphering their own future. The memory came back like a movie being rewound. It was a sunny Saturday in October, 8 months before our wedding. I was 29 and had just signed the purchase contract for my first apartment, a modern 2-bedroom high-rise in downtown Seattle that cost $600,000. Lucas was nervous about the ceremony preparations, complaining about costs that were getting out of control. "Soph, are you sure you need all this?" he said, looking at the vendor list spread on my kitchen table. $20,000 catering, $10,000 photographer, $15,000 decoration. It's a lot of money. A lot. It was a lot of money indeed, especially for him, who earned about $6,000 a month at the realty firm. For me, who had just received a substantial promotion and was earning $18,000 monthly, it was an investment in our special day. But I understood his concern. He had grown up in a family where every dollar was counted.
"Lucas, relax. I'll pay most of it. You contribute what you can. What's important is us being together, celebrating our love." It was in this context that I mentioned the prenuptial agreement, not as mistrust, but as natural protection for someone who had significant assets. My lawyer at the time, Miss Evelyn Reed, had suggested it during the apartment purchase. "Sophia, you're young, successful, and accumulating assets rapidly. A prenup is sensible, especially when there's significant difference in assets between spouses. It's not mistrust, it's intelligent protection." When I talked to Lucas about this on a Tuesday night, he laughed. Literally laughed, almost spitting out the local craft beer he was drinking. Prenuptial? Isn't that rich people nonsense? We love each other, Soph. Love doesn't need papers to prove anything. These things are for couples who enter marriage already thinking about divorce. It's not about love, Lucas. It's legal protection for both of us. If something goes wrong, nothing will go wrong.
He interrupted me, pulling my hand. We're going to be happy forever. You're being paranoid, baby. He made a face like he didn't understand the necessity, but eventually agreed when I explained it was something that would make me more comfortable. If it's important to you, fine. But honestly, I think you're complicating something that should be simple. We went to Miss Reed's office on a Thursday morning. I remember Lucas was hungover because he had gone out with his realtor colleagues the night before for the last bachelor's outing. He arrived 20 minutes late, somewhat sleepy, complaining that he had lost an important sale because of the appointment. Sorry, Soph, had to come straight from work. Mr. Thompson wanted to close a deal today, but I said I had an important appointment with you. Miss Reed, an elegant 60-year-old black woman with a neat afro and impeccable suits, explained the basic terms with the patience of someone who had given that presentation hundreds of times. Complete separation of assets, each spouse maintains their individual patrimony, no division in case of divorce except for assets acquired jointly with clear proof of mutual contribution. It's important to understand,
She said, looking mainly at Lucas, that this agreement protects both parties. If you acquire significant assets during the marriage, they will also be protected. You understand, Lucas? I asked, observing his somewhat lost expression. Yes. Each one keeps what's theirs, right? Makes sense. It made no sense at all that he had understood completely, because Lucas never showed interest in complex legal or financial matters. When I tried to talk about investments or financial planning, he would change the subject or make jokes about me being too uptight with money. But he signed all the pages with the ease of signing a grocery list. 18 pages of dense legal text, specific clauses about properties, investments, future businesses, inheritance. Lucas barely read the section titles there. Now you can marry in peace, Miss Reed said, smiling as she stamped and filed the copies.
I hope to never see you here professionally again. On the way back, driving my Tesla through Seattle streets, Lucas commented, I still think this contract thing is kind of weird, but if it makes you calmer, what's important is that in 2 weeks we'll be married, husband and wife forever. He really didn't understand what he had signed. For Lucas, that was just another necessary bureaucracy to officialize our love, like getting the marriage license or choosing the rings. He didn't comprehend that he was giving up any right to my present and future patrimony. And I, in love and confident that we would be happy forever, didn't mind his lack of attention to details. After all, love was more important than any paper, wasn't it? We were going to build a life together, share everything, be a modern and partnered couple. The contract was just a formality that would never be necessary. How wrong I was. Now 4 years later, alone in the bedroom at 4 a.m. with the contract in my hands, I finally understood the value of that rich people nonsense. I read each page with redoubled attention, as if I were deciphering
A secret code that could save my life. The legal words that at the time seemed just formality, now shone on the page like precious diamonds. Complete separation of property. Each spouse shall maintain individual ownership of all property owned prior to marriage and all property acquired during the marriage. Each spouse property acquired during marriage. The apartment I bought before getting married, the investments I made monthly, the stock applications, the stake in the tech startup I founded with 2 college colleagues 6 months ago. All of this was exclusively mine. In the event of dissolution of marriage, there shall be no division of property, with each party retaining the entirety of their individual assets. Dissolution of marriage, there shall be no division of property. Lucas had no right to anything, absolutely nothing of what I had built.
I continued reading, looking for some clause that could complicate things, some loophole he could use to claim part of my patrimony, but there wasn't any. The contract was crystal clear,
Comprehensive and bulletproof. Miss Reed had done impeccable work. Spousal support waiver. Both parties hereby waive any right to spousal support, alimony, or maintenance from the other party. Alimony. Lucas had no right even to alimony, and considering he earned much less than me, theoretically, he would be the one who could ask for financial support. For the first time in 3 days, I smiled. A small smile, but genuine. Lucas had signed his own financial sentence 4 years ago without even realizing it. And Veronica? Oh, Veronica. She had probably seduced my fiancé thinking he would be her gateway to a financially comfortable life. What delicious irony. I continued reading the specific clauses. Debt separation, each one responsible for their own. Future businesses. Corporate participation remained individual. Intellectual property, royalties, and patents were not shared. Inheritance. Assets received from family remained with the original recipient. It was complete armor. Lucas had no right to a cent of what I had built,
and more importantly, I had no responsibility for his debts. I remembered he had financed a Jeep Wrangler SUV the year before, and plus had a high-limit credit card that he used frequently. I took my laptop and started making a mental list of my current patrimony. Apartment valued at least $750,000. Investments in stocks and funds totaling about $250,000. Stake in the startup I founded with 2 college colleagues worth at least $100,000 in the last contribution. Checking and savings account with $75,000. Paid off car valued at $45,000. More than $1.2 million in net worth at 32. And Lucas had no right to any of it. Even better, my new salary as CTO would be $20,000 monthly, plus performance-based bonuses that could reach $30,000 per month in the best quarters, while Lucas would continue earning his $6,000 or $7,000 monthly selling houses. For the first time in days, I smiled. A small smile, but genuine. Lucas had signed his own financial sentence 4 years ago without even realizing it. And Veronica. Oh, Veronica. She had probably seduced my fiancé, thinking he would be her gateway to a financially comfortable life. What delicious irony. I remembered the conversation we had last Thanksgiving when she complained about the injustice of me having everything. Soph, do you realize how frustrating it is? Beautiful condo, new car, trips, while I kill myself working and barely pay rent? Now I understood it wasn't frustration. It was planning. Veronica had seen in Lucas an opportunity to finally get what she deserved without working for it. She didn't love him. She loved what she thought he could give her access to. I stored the contract back in the safe, but first took photos of all pages with my iPhone. I sent the images to Eliza by email with the subject, "From God." She responded in 10 minutes, even though it was almost 4:30 in the morning. "Sophia, this changes everything. Call me tomorrow." For the first time since that horrible dinner at Le Fleur, I managed to sleep a few hours. And for the first time in years, I dreamed about my future. A future where I was completely free to be whoever I wanted to be, without anyone trying to steal what I had built. I woke up the next morning with a mental clarity I hadn't felt in days. While having coffee in my modern kitchen, looking out the 20th floor window at the Seattle skyline, I began connecting dots that before seemed like innocent coincidences. Veronica had always shown suspicious interest in my financial life. It wasn't just fraternal curiosity. There was a calculating intensity in her questions that now made complete sense. "How much do you pay in rent for this apartment?" she had asked during a visit last year. When I explained it was financed, not rented, her eyes lit up. Wow, it must be worth a fortune. She asked about my salary with uncommon frequency. "Soph, how much are you earning now?" Just to situate myself in the market, she'd say, as if she were comparing with her own opportunities as a property manager.
When I mentioned I was investing in stocks, she wanted to know specific amounts. I'm thinking about starting to invest too. I need a reference. I remembered a specific conversation during last year's Christmas. We were at our parents' house in Tacoma, and Veronica had had a few too many glasses of wine. Soph, do you realize how frustrating it is to see you having everything? Beautiful apartment, new car, trips, expensive clothes, while I kill myself working and can barely pay rent? Veronica, you can have all this too. It's a matter of working hard and making smart choices, I replied, trying to be encouraging. Oh, sure. Everyone has the same opportunities, right? You were always the perfect daughter, the smart one, the one who gets everything easy. I have to kill myself to get crumbs. At the time, I thought it was just the wine talking. Now I realized it was envy and resentment accumulated over years. Veronica genuinely believed she deserved what I had, but without the corresponding effort. And Lucas, poor Lucas, he was never an ambitious person financially. He was satisfied with his realty salary,
with his simple life of weekend beer and football on television. But I noticed how he sometimes looked at the things I bought with a mixture of admiration and discomfort. $800 for a coat, Soph? That's almost my car payment, he commented when I bought a Burberry trench at Nordstrom. It wasn't criticism. It was more like he was trying to process a financial world completely different from his. Veronica had probably planted seeds in his head. Imagine when you two get divorced, Lucas, half of all this will be yours. She didn't know about the prenuptial agreement because I never told anyone in the family. It was a private matter between me and my fiancé. Now I understood the conversation I overheard by chance a few months ago. Lucas was on the phone on the balcony and I thought it was work. But now I remembered hearing, I don't know if it's the right time. She suspects something. I need to be sure. At the time, I thought he was talking about some complicated sale. Now I realized he was probably talking to Veronica about how and when to reveal the relationship. The most painful part was realizing they had planned that moment at the restaurant. The choice of LaFleur on the day of my promotion. The way they arrived together. The poorly disguised satisfaction on their faces. It wasn't an impulse or a desperate confession. It was theater. They wanted to humiliate me publicly, catch me off guard, see me fall apart, and they probably expected me to react with desperation, begging Lucas to come back, offering anything to save my engagement. Too bad they didn't know about the prenuptial agreement. I spent the weekend organizing my strategy. I called Eliza early Monday morning before even going to work. Sophia, girl, this contract is a work of legal art. Lucas has no right to absolutely anything. We can process the separation in 60 days if he doesn't contest. And if he contests, based on what? He signed the prenup. Everything is registered. There are no vices of consent. Unless he proves coercion or fraud, which is impossible, he's screwed. Screwed.
Lucas was screwed and didn't even know it yet. Eliza, I want to do something. I'm going to call them and propose a civilized conversation about the separation. I want to see their faces when they discover the truth. Sophia, are you sure? It might be simpler to just file and be done with it. I'm sure. They humiliated me in public. I want to return the favor. 3 weeks passed since that night at LaFleur. 3 weeks in which Lucas came to get the rest of his things from the apartment, always accompanied by Veronica, as if he needed protection or moral support. 3 weeks in which my mother called daily trying to mediate the situation, as if betrayal were a misunderstanding that could be resolved with a frank conversation. Sophia, dear, I know you're hurt, but these things happen. Lucas has always been a good boy, and Veronica is pregnant. Can't you think about the baby? Think about the baby. The baby that my stepsister was using as an excuse to steal my fiancé and consequently my patrimony. Mom, I won't discuss this. Lucas and I are separating, period. But Sophia, you built a life together.
The condo, the plans. Ah, yes, the apartment, the plans. My mother also believed Lucas had a right to half of everything. Veronica had probably filled the whole family's heads with stories about how I was selfish and petty for not graciously accepting the betrayal. In the 4th week, I called Veronica. She answered on the second ring as if she were waiting for my call. Soph, so good that you called. We really need to talk. Hi, V.
Look, I thought a lot about this whole situation, and I think you guys are right. There's no point in holding grudges. We're adults. These things happen. Silence on the other end of the line. She wasn't expecting this reaction. Really? You're okay with this? I'm trying to accept it. I mean, you fell in love, right? It wasn't anyone's fault. And now there's the baby to think about. Wow, Soph, you can't imagine how relieved I am hearing this. Lucas was so worried, thinking you were going to make drama, complicate the separation. Complicate the separation. How interesting. As if I were the complicated person in the story.
Not at all. Can we meet to talk civilly about how to resolve everything without fights? Just to settle things like adults. Maybe dinner again, but this time for closure, not for surprises. Veronica laughed nervously. Of course, that would be great. Lucas would be so happy. He was afraid you would, make a scene. No, imagine. A scene for what? Let's meet at La Fleur again, since that's where it all started. Saturday night. Perfect. Soph, you can't imagine how important this is for us, especially now with the baby coming. I hung up the phone, smiling. Saturday night would be interesting. Very interesting. I spent the following days preparing like an actress, rehearsing for the performance of her life. I chose the outfit, an elegant black dress that conveyed seriousness and control. I practiced in the mirror, the calm and resigned expression I wanted to maintain throughout the entire conversation. Eliza thought the idea was risky. Sophia, are you sure you want to do this? It might be more efficient to simply notify them through a lawyer.
Eliza, they humiliated me in public. They planned everything to see me fall apart in front of a restaurant full of people. They deserve the same treatment. And if they suspect something, they won't suspect. They're too busy planning how to spend my inheritance. I arrived at La Fleur on Saturday punctually at 8 at night. I asked for the same table as last time. The maitre d' recognized me and made a comment about hoping tonight would be a happier night. If you only knew. Lucas and Veronica arrived together again, but this time the atmosphere was completely different. They were relaxed, smiling, holding hands like a couple in love who could finally show themselves in public. Veronica wore a dress that highlighted her still small but noticeable belly. Soph. Veronica hugged me with genuine effusiveness. You look beautiful. Is that dress new? Thank you. You both look well, too. How's the pregnancy? Great. We're already thinking about names. Lucas wants Michael, if it's a boy. I prefer Gabriel. Lucas pulled out the chair for Veronica to sit, a chivalrous gesture he rarely made for me. Sophia, thank you for agreeing to talk like this peacefully. I was afraid that you would make drama. Imagine, Lucas, we're all adults here. We ordered the same bottle of Bordeaux as last time. The irony wasn't lost on any of us, but this time the atmosphere was one of disguised celebration. They thought they had won the grand prize. So, Lucas said after the first sip, about the separation, we wanted to propose doing everything amicably, divide things fairly without complications. Divide things fairly, I repeated, savoring the words. Tell me more about this, Lucas. What do you consider fair? Veronica and Lucas exchanged a quick glance. They had rehearsed this conversation. Well, we can sell the condo and split it 50-50. The investments too. And now with your new promotion, alimony will help a lot until I can stabilize with V and the baby. Alimony. He really believed I would pay alimony to him while he raised a child with my stepsister? I slowly picked up my purse, as if I were looking for something specific. Lucas and Veronica watched me expectantly, probably thinking I was going to take out some separation documents for us to sign right there, in a friendly reconciliation that would benefit them immensely. Instead, I placed the courthouse envelope with the prenuptial agreement on the table. The paper yellowed by time made a dry sound when it hit the wood. Before we talk about division, I need to clarify something important that you seem to have forgotten. Lucas frowned, looking at the envelope. What is that? Our prenuptial agreement. Lucas, remember the one you signed 4 years ago, saying it was rich people nonsense? The color instantly drained from his face. Veronica looked confused between the two of us. What agreement?
You made a prenuptial agreement? We did, and Luca signed it without even reading it properly. I took the pages out of the envelope and placed them on the table, open so both could see. Complete separation of assets. Do you remember what that means?
Lucas picked up the pages with trembling hands. His eyes ran over the lines, trying to process words he clearly didn't understand completely 4 years ago. Calm down, Soph, Veronica said, her voice losing its previous confidence. Even with an agreement, you were married. There's partial community property, division of assets acquired during marriage. Not when there's complete separation of assets, Veronica. I pointed to the specific clause. It's here. Each spouse shall maintain individual ownership of all property owned prior to marriage and all property acquired during the marriage. Everything acquired during marriage also stays with whoever acquired it. But this can't be legal, Lucas protested, his voice rising an octave. The condo, the investments. I live there. I contributed to expenses. You contributed $300 a month for groceries and gas, Lucas. I paid the $2,500 for financing, the $500 for HOA fees, internet, electricity, phone, insurance. Your $300 doesn't give you property rights over a $750,000 condo. Veronica frantically flipped through the pages as if looking for some loophole, some salvation. But alimony! He has a right to alimony! I smiled for the first time that night. Page 5, Section 3, Spousal Support Waiver. Both parties hereby waive any right to spousal support, alimony, or maintenance. Lucas waived his right to alimony when he signed this. I didn't know what I was signing, Lucas shouted, drawing attention from neighboring tables. You tricked me. I tricked you? Lucas, you were there when the lawyer explained each clause. You said you understood. There are witnesses. Everything is registered at the courthouse. The expression on Veronica's face was changing from confusion to horror. Reality was hitting like a runaway train. You mean he has no right to anything? Nothing. Zero. Zilch. I put the papers back in the envelope. Lucas leaves the marriage exactly as he entered, with his financed SUV, his clothes, and his credit card debts. Lucas ran his hand over his face, finally understanding the magnitude of the situation. Sophia, for God's sake, we can talk about this. You can't leave me with nothing. I'm going to have a child to support. You are going to have a child to support, I emphasized, with your realtor salary, which, by the way, with child support will be quite tight. Child support? Veronica asked, her voice coming out as a whisper. Of course. The father has to pay child support. In Washington, it's usually around 20% of net income for one child. If Lucas earns $6,000 gross, about $4,000 net remains. 20% of that is $800 per month, forever, until the child turns 18. The two looked at each other in panic. They clearly hadn't done these calculations. Plus, medical expenses, daycare when necessary, clothes, education. It's going to be quite expensive to have a baby, guys. Lucas sank into his chair.
My God, Sophia, how can you be so cold, so calculating? Calculating? Me? You two planned this betrayal for months, humiliated me publicly in this same restaurant, and I am the calculating one. Veronica was clearly doing mental math. If Lucas earned $6,000 a month and was going to pay $800 in support, $5,200 would remain minus taxes, about $3,600 net to support him, her, and a baby. Veronica, how much do you earn as a freelancer again? I asked, knowing the answer. Well, it varies. About $2,500 a month when there are projects. About $2,500 when there are projects. So you'll live on $6,100 monthly at best for 3 people. Living where? At my parents' house in Tacoma, she murmured. That small apartment you rent for $1,200. It's going to be cramped with a baby, don't you think? The silence at the table was deafening. Around us, other customers dined happily, oblivious to the financial drama unfolding just meters away.
Sophia, Lucas tried once more. Are you really going to do this? Leave us with nothing? I know we hurt you, but... Lucas, you didn't hurt me. You tried to rob me.
You thought I was an emotional idiot who would hand over half of my $1.2 million patrimony because you were in love? $1.2 million? Veronica repeated, incredulous. Surprise! I'm richer than you imagined, and now with the promotion, I'll earn $20,000 a month while you fight over money for diapers. Lucas buried his face in his hands. I'm an idiot, a complete idiot. Finally, something we agree on. Veronica tried one last card. Soph, you're my sister. We've always been family. You can't abandon us like this. And your niece or nephew, don't you want to help? Veronica, you tried to steal my fiancé thinking you'd steal my fortune along with him. You calculated wrong. And now you'll have to live with the consequences of your choices. But family? Family doesn't betray family.
Family doesn't humiliate family in public restaurants. Family doesn't seduce their sister's fiancé out of greed. I got up from the table, leaving $200 bills. Again, more than enough for my part. Your lawyers can contact mine, Eliza Stone in San Francisco. She has all the necessary information. Sophia, wait! Lucas stood up, trying to follow me. No, Lucas. You waited. You waited 5 months to tell me the truth. You waited until the day of my promotion to maximize the humiliation. You waited until you thought you had everything planned perfectly. Now I'm going to make you wait. Wait for what? Veronica asked, tears beginning to form in her eyes. Wait to see what it's like to be poor, what it's like to live counting pennies, what it's like not being able to pay for dinner at a $200 restaurant. I stopped at the door, looking back at both of them. Maybe now you'll understand why I work so hard to have what I have and why I protect what's mine. I left the floor, hearing Veronica start to cry and Lucas cursing under his breath. In the parking lot, sitting in my car, I allowed myself a moment of pure satisfaction. They had tried to destroy me and ended up destroying themselves. My phone rang. It was Eliza. So, how was the theater? Better than Broadway. You should have seen their faces when they understood they wouldn't get anything. Sophia, you're diabolical, and I completely approve. Eliza, can I file the papers Monday? I can file the papers Monday. In 60 days, you'll be free, and they'll still be poor. I drove home smiling for the first time in weeks. Actually, smiling more than I had smiled in years. 6 months later, life had settled into a new normal that I had never imagined possible. The separation was finalized in exactly 60 days. Lucas didn't contest, probably because any competent lawyer would have explained that he didn't have the slightest chance of winning. Eliza did impeccable work, and I officially became single on a sunny March morning. Through social media and my mother's inevitable comments, I followed from afar the reality that Lucas and Veronica were facing.
It was like watching a car accident in slow motion. You know you should look away, but you can't. Lucas continued working at the realty firm, but things weren't easy. With the unstable economy, housing sales had decreased, and his commission had plummeted along with it. According to my mother, he was earning about $4,000 a month, much less than the $6,000 he used to make. Sophia, Lucas is going through difficulties, my mother said during one of our weekly phone conversations. With the baby's support, very little is left for him to live on. What a shame, I replied, without a hint of genuine sympathy. But babies are expensive. He should have thought about that beforehand. Little Gabriella had been born in February, a little girl who, from photos circulating in the family, had Lucas's eyes and Veronica's stubbornness. The $800 monthly child support was being automatically deducted from Lucas's salary, leaving even less money for his own expenses. Veronica had moved back to our parents' house in Tacoma. The small apartment she rented was impossible for a couple with a baby, and even splitting bills, they couldn't afford anything bigger.
Our parents, already retired and living on limited income, now supported 3 adults and a baby on my father's retirement. Veronica's trying to get more clients, but it's difficult with the baby, my mother continued. And Lucas, he seems so tired lately, working late, driving an hour and a half every day between Seattle and Tacoma. Lucas had tried to move to Tacoma to be closer to the family, but couldn't get a transfer at the realty firm. Now he made the daily commute, spending a fortune on gas he could barely afford. He asked to talk to you, my mother said hesitantly. Maybe you could resolve some things? Mom, we have nothing to resolve. The separation is finalized. He has a new family. Let everyone follow their own life. It was true. I had followed my life spectacularly. With the separation resolved and the betrayal overcome, my energy multiplied exponentially. I concentrated all my strength on my career and business, and the results exceeded my most optimistic expectations. As CTO, I beat all first quarter targets, securing the maximum bonus. My effective salary reached $35,000 a month in some periods. The startup I was a partner in secured new investment, tripling the value of my stake. In April, I found an even larger and more modern loft in downtown Seattle. 2 floors, 3 bedrooms, private terrace with Puget Sound view. I sold my old apartment for $950,000, $200,000 profit in 4 years, and bought the loft in cash for $1.4 million. I renovated everything from scratch. Gaggenau kitchen, complete automation, private gym, office with panoramic view. I spent $300,000 on the renovation, but the result was an architectural work of art that became the cover of Seattle Luxury Living magazine. "Wow, Sophia," said Marcus, my assistant, when he came to see the new loft. "This looks like a movie house. You've achieved the American dream." It was true. At 32, I had a net worth of over $2 million, a solid career at an international company, and complete freedom to do whatever I wanted. I traveled to Europe 4 times that year. London, Berlin, Lisbon, always alone, always first class, always staying at the best hotels. I bought clothes at boutiques I previously considered too expensive, dined at Michelin-starred restaurants, shopped without looking at prices. The loneliness, curiously, I didn't feel it. After years of being betrayed by those I trusted most, the peace of being alone was almost addictive. I didn't need to explain my expenses to anyone, didn't need to consider others' opinions in my decisions, didn't need to share my space or my time. I started therapy, not for sadness, but for growth. Dr. Iris Liu, an incredible psychologist of Taiwanese origin, helped me process not just the betrayal, but years of toxic relationships disguised as family love. "Sophia, you grew up believing you had to take care of everyone around you," she said in one session. "Your sister, your parents, your ex-fiancé. When was the last time someone took care of you?" It was a simple question that made me cry for 20 minutes. I had always been the provider, the responsible one, the problem solver. I never stopped to think if anyone was taking care of me. "Maybe it's time for you to put yourself first," Dr. Liu suggested, "and discover who you are when you're not supporting other people." That's exactly what I did. During the holiday season, I received several messages from Veronica. First, reconciliation attempts, then direct requests for financial help. "Soph, I know you're upset, but we're sisters. Gabriella is your niece. Can't you at least help with some baby things? Sophia, expenses with Gabriella are very high. Diapers, medicine, pediatrician. Lucas is killing himself working but can't cover everything. Soph, for God's sake, answer my messages. We need help and you're the only person in the family who can afford it." I read them all without responding. I blocked the number after the 12th message. My mother tried to mediate. "Sophia, whatever the hurt, the child is innocent. Don't you want to meet your niece?" "Mom, when Veronica decided to seduce my fiancé, she made a choice. Now she's living with the consequences of that choice. It's not my responsibility to solve the financial problems they created." "But you have so much money."
I have so much money because I worked hard to have it, and because I protected what I built. If Veronica wanted financial stability for her child, she should have thought about that before getting pregnant by a man who earns $6,000 a month. It was harsh with my mother, but necessary. The whole family had gotten used to the idea that I was the personal emergency bank for any crisis. Not anymore. On my 33rd birthday in December, I organized a party at the new loft. I invited work colleagues, college friends, some people I met traveling, 60 elegant people, French champagne, professional catering, live musician. Looking out my terrace window at the Seattle lights with a glass of Veuve Clicquot in my hand and surrounded by people who genuinely enjoyed my company, I felt deep gratitude.
Gratitude that Lucas had betrayed me. Without the betrayal, I would never have discovered my own strength, never would have learned to set boundaries, never would have realized I could be completely happy alone. Gratitude for the prenuptial agreement that my younger self had the wisdom to make. Those papers saved me from years of legal battle and allowed me to start over immediately. Gratitude even for Veronica. Without her envy and greed, I never would have learned that not all family deserves unconditional loyalty. Some people are toxic regardless of blood ties. The week after my birthday, I received one last contact attempt, not from Veronica or Lucas, but from my father. Sophia, your mother didn't want me to call, but I need to talk to you. Things are very difficult here at home. Lucas lost his job at the realty firm last week. Year-end cuts. My father rarely interfered in family conflicts. When he called, it was because the situation was really critical. And what do you want me to do, Dad? I don't know, daughter. I don't know what to do anymore. There are 4 people here at home, a small child, and now without Lucas's income.
Your mother is talking about going back to work, but she's 75 years old. I felt a pang of guilt, genuine for the first time in months. My parents weren't to blame for this situation. They were just trying to help a daughter in difficulties, as parents do. Dad, I can help you, but I won't give money to Lucas or Veronica directly. If you need something specific, electric bill, groceries, pediatrician for Gabriella, send me the bills and I'll pay them directly. That's my offer. I'll help you, who are innocent in this story, but I won't finance the bad choices Lucas and Veronica made. My father accepted, relieved. In the following months, I received some bills by email. $250 electric bill, $400 groceries, $180 pediatric consultation. Trivial amounts for me, but they made a difference for them. I never had direct contact with Lucas or Veronica again. According to my father, Lucas got a job at a smaller realty firm, earning half what he used to earn. Veronica continued doing sporadic freelance work, but with a small child, it was impossible to work full-time.
They had moved to a cheap rental in Tacoma. $900 monthly rent for a tiny space, but it was what they could afford. Gabriella's support continued being automatically deducted, leaving even less money for them. They fight a lot about money, my father told me in a conversation. Lucas blames Veronica for insisting on the separation. Veronica blames him for losing his job. It's a cycle. It was exactly what I imagined would happen when people get together for wrong reasons. Greed, envy, opportunism, and financial reality knocks on the door. False love disappears quickly. 2 years after the betrayal, my life was completely transformed, not just financially, but emotionally. I learned to say no without guilt. I learned that self-esteem is non-negotiable. I learned that some people are incapable of genuinely loving. They can only see other people as resources to be exploited. I started dating Damon,
An architect I met at an art exhibition. He had his own successful company, his own resources, his own ambitions. Our relationship was based on real partnership, not financial or emotional dependence. "You have impressive strength," he told me one night while we dined on my loft's terrace, "but also an inner peace that's rare." He was right. I had found a peace that came from knowing exactly who I was and what I deserved. I no longer needed anyone's approval.
no longer needed to support people who didn't contribute to my life. Gabriella turned 2 without me meeting her personally. From photos my mother insisted on showing on her phone, she was a beautiful and apparently healthy child. I felt a hint of curiosity about her, but not enough to reconnect with Veronica and Lucas. Some friends thought I was being cruel. "Sophia, she's your niece. Don't you miss family?" "I have family," I would respond. "My parents, who love me unconditionally. My true friends, whom I've built over the years. Family isn't just blood. It's who really cares about your well-being." It was true. Marcus, my assistant, was more present in my life than Veronica ever was.
Eliza continued being a close friend and advisor. Dr. Liu helped me grow in ways I didn't even know I needed. On the 3rd anniversary of the betrayal, I received a message from an unknown number. It was Lucas. "Sophia, I know you don't want to talk to me, but I need to tell you something. You were right about everything. About me, about Veronica, about the money. I was an idiot and destroyed the best thing I had in life. I hope you're happy." Reading that message didn't bring me satisfaction or anger, just a kind of peaceful closure. Lucas had finally understood what he lost, but it was too late. I had moved on completely. I deleted the message without responding. Today, at 34, I look back and see how that horrible night at Le Fleur was actually the best gift life could have given me. It forced me to discover who I really was when I wasn't being exploited or underestimated. I'm now executive director of the company with a salary of $400,000 annually.
My net worth has exceeded $3 million. I travel the world regularly, both for work and pleasure. I have a healthy relationship with someone who values me and contributes equally to our partnership. More importantly, I learned that people who really love you don't try to steal your peace, your money, or your dignity. They celebrate your successes, respect your boundaries, and build together with you. Lucas continues living in the cheap rental, working jobs that pay little, fighting with Veronica about money they don't have. Veronica continues sending occasional messages asking for help, which I continue ignoring. Gabriella is growing up in a family that struggles financially because of her parents' selfish choices. Sometimes I wonder if I should feel guilty for having so much while they have so little. But then I remember they tried to rob me. They planned my humiliation. They calculated my emotional and financial destruction. The fact that they calculated wrong isn't my fault. I built everything I have with honest work, intelligent decisions, and adequate protection of my assets. They tried to take a shortcut through betrayal and discovered that shortcuts often lead to dead ends. I learned that self-esteem and dignity are non-negotiable, that not all family deserves loyalty, that underestimated people can surprise in devastating ways, and that sometimes the best revenge is simply living well, while those who tried to harm you reap the consequences of their own choices. My story isn't about revenge. It's about financial justice. It's about discovering that it's worth protecting what you build and that not everyone deserves access to your life. And it's about learning that when you stop supporting people who only exploit you, much more energy remains to build something truly extraordinary.
I got my freedom and my fortune back. If my story taught you anything, I hope it's this. Your dignity is non-negotiable. Let me know in the comments, what are you doing to protect what's yours? Thanks for tuning in.